Hello, welcome to my channel where I talk mostly about watercolour painting. So in the background I've got this preview of this sketchbook I made, and that's what this video is going to be about. Now the actual sketchbook is a really nice book, and I bought it thinking I was going to paint in it, but it's actually cellulose paper, so it's not really good for painting on. So I decided to stick some of my favourite sketchy watercolour paintings in, and I've had them kicking around in the studio for a while. There's a pile of them there you can see. So I just got them all together, and I also used these white frames to select areas of bigger paintings that I thought I might want to stick down. And it was a really good exercise because actually some of the paintings I found I decided that I would frame. So it was a really good way of just sorting through what I was doing with this big pile. Some of them are just nice colours but not complete paintings in themselves. So you might decide to do something similar with your sketch paintings, or you might already have a system. I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Now what I've got is I've got this really big cutting board, and that's a fantastic thing to have for something like this because you can use the squares to cut things so that they're square. So as you can see, I've got these frames, and I've actually cut out a frame the size of the book. I'm not going to be cutting them all this size, I'll be varying the size. So what I'm doing here is I'm just laying that frame down on top of this painting, and I'm just literally going to use my knife to make a mark in each of the corners, and then I'm going to be cutting it out with a really sharp knife. So obviously for this one I've used the cutout to make my square, but if I wanted to then trim that down, I could use the lines on the cutting board to make sure that I was cutting straight. And I'll be doing that for some of these paintings in a minute. Okay, so there you go. I've got my first painting, and I'm going to put that on the first page because I really like this one. And I did actually end up trimming this one a bit smaller. I don't know if that was a mistake. I was trying to get rid of some of that yellow at the bottom, but you'll see that when I show the actual sticking in the sketchbook, because at this stage I was just cutting out the paintings and getting a whole bunch of them so that I could then stick them in on a different table. Actually, it's quite hot where I'm working. So this is actually an offcut from that first painting I did, and I really like this little bit as well, so I'm going to cut that out and see if I can put it in the sketchbook as well. And I didn't know whether to keep the black on or not, so I did to start with, and I can always cut it off later. It's this gold colour that I really like, and I really like it with the blue, and the gold colour is Bloodstone Genuine, which is Daniel Smith colour, and it's mixed with a bit of burnt sienna, and I just think it makes this really beautiful colour. And I did quite a few paintings using it, but even though I loved it, I didn't find it that easy to use. So I ended up with quite a few of these paintings which I really love, but I don't feel they're quite resolved or quite finished. So by sticking them in this sketchbook, I've got easy access to them, and I can refer to them when I'm using this colour again to create finished paintings. So you can see here that I've got a rectangular frame, so instead of the square one I'm going horizontal, and it's really useful I think to have a variety of different frames so that you can really have a good look at what part of your painting you might like. So obviously I've got quite a big stack of paintings because some of them are more recent, but some of them go back, probably at least a couple of years. But I still think this is a good exercise to do, even if you don't have loads of paintings. You don't have to fill the whole sketchbook. And I also think that it's quite good to allow a little bit of time to go by before you start cutting up any paintings you might have like this, because I felt less precious about these, giving myself a bit of time and space between them. I don't think I could have cut them up like this at the time, soon after I did them. So, I think at least sort of a good few weeks has gone by, and it's just quite a fun process really. Okay, so I decided to cut that black bit off because I wanted to put it next to this painting, and I'm using the lines of the cutting mat to cut this one. And I'm going to zoom through all this quite quickly because I think you get the idea, but I'm just being quite experimental here. I'm ripping the paper and I'm cutting sections out and seeing what happens if I stick them down with a gap between them. I'm not even sure if I'll use all of these, but I'll probably use them, if not in this sketchbook, then in another one. I really liked this painting when I did it, but it just was never really quite resolved, so I'm happy to cut this one up. And this one as well, I loved this painting. I'm not sure that I'm going to use it in this sketchbook, because I think this sketchbook is sort of going more towards a kind of landscapey, whereas this one's quite abstract. But it was really fun, and I think it would make a really good sort of double page spread. And then I was also experimenting with sort of more like collage, you know, so kind of putting two paintings together. I think it looks really nice, and also it just might generate new ideas for future paintings. Again, I'm not sure if I'll use these exact ones. I'm just sort of gathering all this together. But anyway, I'm going to go over to the other desk now and start sticking this down. Okay, so it's not quite so hot in here, but I don't think the light is quite as good as it is in my conservatory or my cutting mat is. But I'm going to be sticking this painting onto the front page, and I'm using a pH neutral adhesive, which is archival. It's not essential, but I think it's a good idea. Now I've got some water here, and I'm actually going to be painting the water on the back of this paper first. Now that's just going to relax the fibres so that when the paper dries, it will dry flat, because you can see it's a little bit buckled. Now, I did paint the water on for the first one, but what I did for the subsequent paintings was I just mixed the water with the glue. So I'm just making sure that the whole thing is covered, and when I put the glue on, I actually just do it on top of a piece of newspaper, and I really make sure that I'm covering right up to the edges and thinking about the edges and the corners as well. So here I go, I'm just going to stick it down, and I've got some heavy books to hand, and I'm just literally going to place it on the paper and then stick those heavy books on top. And I don't think I left those heavy books on there for longer than about 5 minutes, and that's enough to just get it stuck in place. And I moved on to the next one here, and like I said, I've just mixed the water with the glue for this one and for all the other ones that I'm going to do. So I'm just showing this really speeded up, and I'm following exactly the same process. Placing it on the page and then putting those books on top. And I did a mix with the books. Sometimes I put the cover down, and sometimes I just put the books directly on top of the artwork. Okay, so I just repeated this process, and I'm varying the sizes of the sketches, but I'm not going to show you the whole thing because I'm just repeating myself. I'm going to flip through the sketchbook now. It's not completely finished. I've still got a few pages left which I can fill over the next few months. Like I said, I bought this thinking I'd paint in it. I really like the way the back goes over the spiral. I don't think if I was to do this again, I would use quite such an expensive sketchbook, but I was happy to use this in this way because I've used paintings that I do really like. So it has quite a sort of clean look to it. I think you could do a version in a cheaper sketchbook where you're a bit more sort of scrappy and haphazard and perhaps not so precious about it. The idea for this really came from a final move where I just realised that I've just got so many bits of paper, and I'm really determined to kind of not be too wasteful and really make the most of what I've got. So I'm definitely going to be making more sketchbooks and experimenting with different formats, different types of sketchbook, different ways of putting them together. You know, I'm calling this a sketchbook, but in some ways it's more of a scrapbook because I've stuck everything in it. But you could do a mix of both. You could have a book where you're painting in it and you're sticking things down. I think there are so many possibilities, and I would love to hear in the comments if you do something similar or if you've got a really good sketchbook practice going that you like. And I really hope that you found this video useful, and please subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope to see you in the next one. Okay, thank you. Bye.